So you can pick one, the man said. Your work, or your friend. Mara stared at Kade on the screen. His head was bent and his hands were in his pockets, and he looked like a person who had never been anything else. She turned to the man. You can pick something you can actually hurt. He nodded to one of the men. The man left. What happens now, the Thai man said, is very simple. The door blew in. It didn't literally explode. It simply ceased being a door and became wood pieces with a problem. Kade walked through the dust with two harbour cops who owed him favours and a look that made Mara's fingers go numb with relief. The Thai man reached for his pocket. Kade shot him in the shoulder. It was messy. Kade prefers messy when clean men think they own the room. The harbour cops handled the rest. Mara sat on the floor and laughed once because the alternative was to shake apart. Kade knelt. I told you to text me when you were late. I didn't want to be predictable, she said, which was stupid. He kissed her forehead. It tasted like salt and gunpowder and something like the first clean breath after a long cough. Outside, the rain started again. Of course it did. The city's habits are old. They didn't talk about what it meant. They didn't talk about how long they had. They didn't need to. They walked home together in the rain without umbrellas, and people who saw them probably thought they were poor or drunk or both. They were simply two people whose shadows finally overlapped. Sometimes the price of love is the thing you can't keep. Sometimes it's the thing you have to keep even when it hurts. Sometimes it is a ledger on a table and a rope in a hand and a gun in a river. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of the parts of yourself that wanted to be easy. With Mara and Kade, it was all of that and the quiet knowledge that one day the city would ask them to pay again. That day came in winter, with ice in the gutters and a sky the color of old receipts. Kade got a text with a location and a word. Enough. He knew whose number it used to be. Leo. He left a note on Mara's desk that said, "Back soon." He did not come back. They found him 2 days later under the South Bridge, where the river keeps secrets it grows tired of. His hands were bound with the kind of knot only dockmen and liars know. His face was turned toward the surface, as if he had tried to see the light and couldn't see. Mara stood on the bank and learned how to brake without making a sound. The harbour cop who had owed Kade a favour put a hand on her shoulder and said nothing. There wasn't anything to say that didn't insult the size of the hole. At the funeral no one knew to attend, she put the cracked phone in the ground with him. She kept the ledger, she kept the keys, she kept the parts of herself that had learned how to love something dangerous and didn't turn to stone in the learning. When she finally wrote about Kade, she didn't use his name. She wrote about a man who had tried to become a wall in a city built from floodplains. She wrote about the way rain looks on a night when two hearts change shape. She wrote about a woman who had stopped counting the cost because she had already paid it. She signed it with her own name. She put it on the front page. She waited for the city to reward her with silence or knives. It gave her both. Sometimes late, when the office is empty and the city's voice has gone low, she walks the ferry dock alone and lets the river stitch the dark back together. She speaks to it the way you speak to someone who can answer. I'm still here. I'm still trying. I still know your name. Love born in darkness always comes with a price. Mara thought she understood that when she first leaned into the alley and felt her heartbeat try to betray her. She hadn't. Not until she felt the bill printed on skin instead of paper. She pays it anyway. Not because she likes the math, but because the alternative is a silence she can't live in. On some nights when the neon cracks just right and the river forgets to growl, she feels a weight settle next to her on the gangway. She doesn't turn. She doesn't say his name. She just leans into the space he once took and lets herself believe, for the length of a siren fading, that some debts are paid forward, that some loves survive by becoming the city they tried to save. And then the rain begins again, and she stands, and she goes back to work.